Kia ora, everybody, what's up? It's Robett. Sorry we're a couple minutes late. Technical difficulties, totally my fault. For someone that's so involved with technology, I've really stuffed up the last one for the week, so I apologise. I shall have a sip of whiskey and introduce my guest. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Grant Watson. How are you, brother?
Hey, good, Robert. Very good, thank you.
Let's get straight to it. You are a flippin' weapon. I've done some digging. My friends have told me some stories. You deal with the not even the millies. You deal in the billies. That's how we're rolling. Ex Chief Operating Officer for McDonald's, and last role was one of the directors at Fonterra, helping with Director of Global Food Service. You've very experienced in the space where it comes to a whole bunch of very cool stuff. How would you describe your weapon skill set of where you do the most damage? Because clearly
Um,
you're a weapon, but where's your sweet spot?
yeah, look, I think for me, my big passion is taking the goodness of New Zealand to the world, and 10 really good years with Fonterra. The last five were in that food service space. And when we talk about food service, we're talking about food that's consumed outside of home. So, hotels, restaurants, cafes, airlines, catering, all that sort of stuff. And like many New Zealand food producers, Fonterra, the best mozzarella in the world, cream cheese, special creams, so all that really good stuff. And so what I've really enjoyed, and I think we've added a lot of value in the last few years. I've really enjoyed taking that goodness to the world. So that's really passionate. That's my sweet spot. And I think the other thing is 18 years with McDonald's, a long time. And when you work in a company like McDonald's, you get to understand how the best the best food operators in the world work. So when you're manufacturing and selling food, and you've got that background of understanding how hospo type operators work, it's a really nice end-to-end understanding. But man, food to the world is from NZ's my passion.
The main key bit I got out of that was you lifted business revenue from 1.4 billion per annum to 2.8 billion. That's a lot.
Yeah, that was look. It was.
You're obviously good. It's great.
It's look a really good team of people around the world. That business operates in 55 markets. It's got, as I mentioned, it's got some great food categories. Specializing in some really focused channels. So like bakeries in China are really specialized with dairy, but also through to the KFCs and the Pizza Huts and the McDonald's of the world. So right across the spectrum, selling great product. And we've had a great growth journey. China alone is now, a $1 billion food service business for Fonterra, and it's coming back on stream now. From what I gather, I've been out of the business for about 4 months now, but it's coming back on stream, and it'll pick up and do really well.
Out of all of the crew that we've had on, obviously we've got a good mutual friend who's a bit of an animal, which we won't even discuss his little chicken legs and his pot belly and his bald head. We don't need to talk about him. But what I do want to talk about is, out of all the guests we've had so far, you are now guest number 4 that has come to the party ready with notes, with things that which we can discuss to give structure and formality. I would expect nothing less from the billion dollar big dog when it comes to this. Hey, just quick question. When you were CEO of McDonald's, did you have a special McDonald's card where you could go anywhere and get free shit? Is there some type of elite free Macca's card? Is that a thing, or am I just like dreaming?
Nah, do you know what? When you work for McDonald's, you pretty much get free food, right? So I reckon from the age of 20 through to about 34, I'd eat at least one McDonald's meal a day for free, which was pretty epic, man. It's
Mate,
pretty good.
your body isn't showing it. Unlike our friend, he definitely got a secret card.
Yeah. No, it was a great journey there, man. It was great.
So I've got we timed it today for a couple of reasons. The main one is the rethinking about the hospitality space when we go from a 4 to 3 and then down, because obviously the game shifted. And from a lot of the people that we've been talking to with business leaders and CEOs and weapons in the mix, we've been trying to figure out, have business owners and decision makers actually thought about specifically their game plans for each of these different sections? And so going through some of the things that you talk about is making sense of manufacturing businesses for food service and hospitality, both in New Zealand export, and creating momentum in hospitality and accelerating back out of COVID-19 from updated level 3. So it's a pretty big day for the sector, right? There's a lot of people that are involved with it. There's a lot of people that are hired within it, and now coming into the mix from 4 to 3. At a top line, what were the first? Was it what you expected it would be? What does this open up, and what are the opportunities, or what's your initial thoughts from the 4 to 3 and as it comes to kind of this hospo food service space? Where did your head go?
Yeah, look, I think it makes sense, and the focus from the government has been very much around bedding down the progress and the momentum that we've made, and not opening businesses back up too quickly, so that it creates risk. So I think that makes sense. Certainly, if you look at the economy right now, lot of pain in tourism, but retail and hospo are other good examples that really want to gear up. So I think for me that the biggest thing right now is working out how you can start as a business. How can you start to gain momentum in hospo
From
so
zero.
that when you go from level 3 to level 2, you can open that up even further. So I mean, it's fairly limited at the stage in terms of drive-through, in terms of click and collect. Will be interesting to see how people interpret that, and then obviously home delivery. But I think the challenge as we move into 3 at some point, and then on to 2, is really looking to innovate with business models, because historically restaurants have primarily been dine-in or a bit of takeaway, and home deliveries will clearly pick up. But look, at the end of the day, people want to get out there and socialise, right? So it's a great industry to be in. We just need to reignite it, and really being quite innovative again in what those business models could look like in your restaurant, or people coming into your restaurant and taking food away, and I think looking at how other industries operate and gaining inspiration from those will be really important in terms of just doing some stuff different.
Well, it's by it's musicians and creators are stuck with this forced creativity that they're kind of getting all these different ideas out when it comes to hospo and food service and all these different bits and pieces. The reality is it's a time where they're going to have to rethink. What we were talking with Jeff Ross, and he was talking about some of his stuff. They were saying, like in the bars, we're going to, put chefs out the front, have kind of grab and go type scenario, different sort of menus. But it was giving them a chance to almost like reimagine what that experience could be in person. So how do you think most, where's your headspace at when you look in the entire ecosystem at a macro level to how you would reimagine what could be? Because clearly when it comes to safe space and social distancing, that's going to change food layouts. It's going to change the way handling. I mean, every single thing is going to get touched. At a top line, where do you think your head goes to when it comes around to, if you were to sprinkle the little Watson magic dust over the shit, how would you reimagine what that world could look like?
Yeah, I mean, if I just think selfishly about the favourite restaurants that I've got here in Auckland. And,
okay, let's name them. Give me your top 3.
I would go. The obvious would be Prego. You've got to have Azabu in there, and a legendary new one just around the corner from me is Lillian. So those would be my 3, man. And for me to social distance, be safe and keep others safe. And let's say we're down to level 2 at that point. I think there's a few opportunities. One is gear a restaurant up so it's easy to place an order on the phone, on the internet, using an app, whatever the case may be. And for me to be able to just pop in safely, pick that up when it's ready and take it home. It goes without saying Uber will continue. But the other one for me, and I talk about innovation and being inspired by other industries. You look at something like F45, so functional fitness in 45 minutes. If I could get into Prego, get my drink in 5 minutes, get my meal in 15 minutes, and be out of there in 45 minutes. And the point there is that, you might have half the seating, you might get the social distancing right, but if I've got to sacrifice an hour and a half at Prego and get that down to 45 minutes so that I get that experience, so everyone's safe and economically it works for the operators, that's the sort of stuff we need to look at. I was in my local supermarket the other day, and now you can only go down the lane one way and the next lane up the other way. Again, how do you create those lanes in restaurants so it's safe for the waiting staff, so it's safe for the customers coming in? So,
wow,
a couple of small examples that they may not work, but it is looking at what other industries are doing and what other folk are doing in the hospo industry to see how we can really fire up in two, assuming we get going at a basic level in three.
it's really interesting. Just that point on almost repackaging time with experience. And if you communicate up front what that new experience will be with time, mentally you'll just get into a different zone because that's just the expectation. But what it'll actually mean is, I'm imagining from a restaurant's perspective, if you knew you could get through 2 sets in 2 hours instead of one every 2 hours, and you get double the cash for half the people doing it, the numbers might weirdly start to stack up if they start to tweak the products and services for time. So do you think, in a nutshell, basically, if it's quiet, there's not many people. If it's busy, there's a lot, but that's over time. So what you're almost saying is, is the opportunity redesigning the percentage of space for the products of time to be able to get through for experience and price it accordingly? Because that's quite interesting. I've never even thought about it like that.
I think it is. And look, if you've got plenty of capacity in your restaurant, it doesn't matter anyway. But most restaurants are busy at the same time every day, and the key to quick execution is simplicity, right? So again, call it a Prego. And instead of having 20 menu items available, just have the 10 favorites. Instead of having 20 Pinots available, just have 3. But speed up the execution, because at the end of the day, as much as a takeaway is convenient and it could be positioned safely, or Uber Eats will do its thing, I want to get out of home. I've spent the last 3 weeks at home. I've saved a lot of money and I haven't socialized. Now what I want to do is I want to get out and socialize and spend some of the money I've saved. So again, just the need is there, but it's how do we package it up so you're relevant to your consumers. But you've got to keep your chefs safe. You've got to keep your waiting staff safe, and you've got to keep people, you people dining safe as well. And again, I don't know what the exact answers are, but let's innovate and let's look at it as an industry and find some solutions.
One of the things that I was wondering about is, could a government regulate mandatory contactless payments to stop hands?
It's a really good call. I think
like throw the flipping hammer down. Fund it, back it, whatever the shit is, but a clearly one is, if we're talking about touch and handling, there's nothing probably more dirty than dollars and bills and cents that people have touched, right?
Yeah. Look, I completely agree, Robett, and I think that's where it's understanding what the consumer experience is from start to finish, right? Another example would be menus. Get rid of menus.
True.
Here's your piece of paper. Scribble what you want on as you order. It goes up to an end of the bar that's that doesn't have staff at it. Someone with the rubber gloves has a look at it, places the order, and chucks it away. Get rid of menus, and let's just scribble down. So again, it's just thinking that stuff through and doing things a bit differently.
Just on that, there are hygiene ratings for every single food service or fast food, just food place, right? There's ABC, you're good, you shit, whatever. Now with this, we had Janine Crossan on the other day, and she's Weapon powered by Flossie, and she was saying that there's going to be total new like hygiene standards, routines, expectations, certifications, all the rest of it. Basically, because people are going to be creating this as we go, going from a 3 to 2. It's a wild west in terms of guidelines, because you don't know what the rating is on their systems and processes yet, because it doesn't exist here, right? Is there a mandatory, like exactly to your point, you're saying, okay, receipts need to do this, menus need to be that, chefs need to be here, the spacing needs to be there, like you've got fire coding. Will there be a new coding system for hospitality after this? Like, is that a thing? Will it be a thing? For ratings?
Yeah. Look, it's a really good call, and I know there's work going on at the moment to come up with more specific guidelines. But the usual story, right? We're going so quickly and it won't cover everything. But at some stage there will be the right guidelines. part of those will be to get us through levels 3, 2, and 1, and then others maybe things that are just really, really good for the future. But you're dead right. There's the stuff that we will need to start doing to give people confidence. That this new expectation is being met, and it's higher than what we used to do.
And to that exact point, because things are happening so fast and daily, it can't be similar to someone from the council will stop and once a year have a look around, there's your A. It's going to be to the day. So clearly we're talking about some type of digital monitoring, digital Yelps for health and safety, and safe distancing, coding, where this thing may be. So there's going to be entire ecosystems that come at the back of this for how, because Janine was talking about this new kind of, she was calling it like we called it this fear-based economy. You're going to want safety and security. So how certain businesses now, reimagine and reframe their whole, way of thinking and experience, they're going to do that through communication. They're going to do that through digital. So surely we're about to see a massive new wave of app design and customer experience and everything get integrated into tech, surely, because that's what they have on them to still have control. Do you see
I
a
think
big...
Yeah, and I think it's a great point, Robert. There'll be tools that get developed that actually just help the operators do a better job of running their businesses, and in turn produce a better output for their customers. But also stuff that provides more transparency and more confidence to people, going into their businesses. So I think there'll be a lot of really, really cool tools that come out that will provide ongoing benefit.
Yeah, it gets you, as for a shitty of a situation to kick off, it also makes you just totally rethink what those new experiences can be digitally, like digitally enhanced, right, or enabled, or obviously Uber Eats switched the game up, Uber switched the game up, Airbnb switched the game up, all this other stuff. It's all digitally driven, but around consumer demand and all the rest of it. So, what do you think the future of food? So do you think we will go back to ever how it was before, or do you think it will forever change, full stop, game over? This is a totally new world of expectations and delivery.
Sorry, you cut out a bit there, Robert, but you're asking about the future of food service?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I think first and foremost, whether you're a manufacturer supplying into the food service industry or a hospo operator, food is a great industry to be in, right? Like those manufacturing food in New Zealand, it's high quality, it's really highly regarded overseas. Often it's really innovative and functional. So I think that's a big tick, and we should only continue to see growth in that space. And I think in New Zealand we are going to go through a fairly painful period because unfortunately businesses will go under. Hospo is really exposed to tourism, and that's going to take quite some time to come back out of. But usual story is, what do we learn on the way through, making sure as an industry and as operators that we're stronger when we come out. Look, I suspect there'll be a few roll-up opportunities, and I've heard on a number of your interviews asking about that. So it is going to be a really challenging period. So I mean, for me, I look at it and if you've got a strong balance sheet, it's looking for the opportunities that come up in terms of possibly buying other businesses. If you've got a weak balance sheet, start thinking about who you could partner up with so that your ownership structure changes, but maybe in a more favourable way. And the other thing is that whenever we go through economically tough periods and we tighten everything up, when things do come right, we generally make more money.
Yeah, those that have maybe just organically ticked along without too much thinking of strategy, customer experience, digital transformation, social brand building, all these other things. Really now that they're extremely vulnerable to this new world and expectations from the consumer, right? So almost as much as it is, food and the recipe, there's almost going to be this whole other, tech social digital part, which never was part of cooking ever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
is
for
that kind of, it's
sure.
like art and science.
Yeah, it is. It is like the world will definitely change, and I just, I mean, I think you're a bit younger than me, but certainly anyone above 40, I think, has taken a big step up in the use of technology in the last 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, you know. Only 2 months ago, my mother was working out how to use internet banking for the first time, and now she's on house party. So, but you look at you look at the GFC, the businesses that did really well coming out of GFC, cut costs ahead of the curve, and they embrace technology. Two really clear themes, and I'm sure those two will be a part of the success stories and the recovery coming out of this.
So if you're a small, you're a small business, family business, you're in the food game, your doors have been shut, you're scared, your balance sheet isn't too good, you want to try and fight this thing, bring it back. You want to try and start from zero, restart the wheels. You want to engage with the community. You want to reset the menu. You want to do all of it. What should their priorities be specifically of how you'd approach if you were in their shoes right now, knowing we're about going from 4 to a 3, and then obviously then 3 to a 2? What would your advice be to those crew?
Yeah, look, I think a couple of things. One is working out how you can start up in level 3. And again, maybe it is as simple as Uber Eats and some form of click and collect if that's clarified as being appropriate. So I think that's that's really important. The other one is that hospitality is driven by great people, and if you can keep great people in your business who will get on the floor, get in the kitchen, and be the folk that deliver that magic. Down, once you're up and running, work out how you look after your people. Obviously, from a cost perspective, I'm picking that most people, have effectively cut back on labour, paid minimum wage to those that they want to keep, which is effectively the subsidy. At 80%, and they put a halt on obviously ordering food and packaging. That they're cutting back on all of their outside services. They're getting rent relief. So again, those disciplines coming back online will be really important in terms of managing cash flow. And then again, think about the operating model. What can it look like in level 2? What's the customer experience that we can deliver? That maybe is quite different from what we've been doing in the past. That gets your business back up and running.
What are some other different verticals which food service crew could potentially look to partner with? Like, what are the side? I mean, yesterday, we're talking with Tim Elp from the CEO of Juicy, talking about like they can, I'm sure, they have tighter alliances with gas stations, tighter alliances with remote spots to park up and camp, and remote, like what different within the food sector. If you were to take the physical bricks and mortar of what it does to food externally, what are some other ways or revenue lines or other ways that you could think about potential revenue for a small food service business?
Yeah, I mean, one example that I'm close to and have seen unfold really well in the last 4 weeks is Jess's Underground Kitchen. Now, historically, that business consists of 4 cafes, a central kitchen, and they produce chef-prepared gourmet meals that are frozen. Now, with their 4 cafes closing, their quick pivot has been really ramping up home delivery, looking at what they can sell through the supermarket. So I think the opportunity is looking at what your channels are and looking at how you can use or utilize or recover your fixed overheads. So what are the channels we're not in that we can be? We've got this equipment sitting here, we've got this labor cost sitting here. Does it make sense for 2 businesses to use the same kitchen at different times of the day? That getting a bit more into the sharing economy side of things. But look, it is again, we just have to think really laterally. But the good news is, fingers crossed, 6, 12, 18 months down the track, we'll be back out at our favourite restaurants. We might be spending a little bit less on meals, in terms of the economy and employment and so forth. But we're going to be back out there. So it's just getting ready for that.
Yeah, it's the one upside is when you go from a three to a two, people are going from drive up burgers to sit down burgers, but in the tourism space, they're still at zero. So you're ahead of that curve anyway, still, right? So I think hospo, you're probably right, it's going to bounce back, and I think you also right, Grant, around the idea of the instinctual drive for social interaction and human connection in person is is that it's so
Yeah.
primal, eh? It's so weird.
Oh, it is, man.
A couple of people have been
Yep.
saying, like everyone's gone remote and efficiency's flipping way up and people are smashing shit. It's great. And it's just weird because now I said the other side of it is, from a business perspective, you're getting more efficient, more effective, you're getting more output, but then simultaneously you're missing the human connection in person, which is one is like output for business and one is like internal for soul. There's this
Yeah,
weird,
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
and that tango is going to be a funky one that everyone tries to re-navigate through. When they see everyone again for the first time, it's like, do we hug? Do we high five? Do we knuckles? What do we do? It's going to be something like awkward. Those movies when people like someone goes for the bro shake and then someone goes for like one of those and it gets a bit like one of those
Yeah.
John Key, Richie McCaw ones.
Yeah, 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 exactly, exactly. And look, I think the other thing is, we've got a pretty cool culture here in New Zealand, and when we come out of this, if businesses play around with different concepts and they don't work, the starting point is the consumers will want you to succeed, right? So if you do something different and get it wrong, I think there's going to be a fair bit of goodwill there. But if you do something different and get it right, man, they will really appreciate the fact that you're making something accessible for them again, because that's what they're hanging out for. They want your great food. They love your service. It's the ambience. It's the fact that they can hang out with people they want to hang out with, and again, it's the innovative outcomes that I think will come out of the next 3 to 6 months. Could be quite cool and could be very much enduring changes for parts of the industry. I think the flip side is, there are parts of New Zealand and there are parts of the hospital and food service sector that will get nailed. Unfortunately, they will, and it's confronting that reality and knowing that and moving forward on that basis as well.
Do you think who'll get smoked more, cafes, bars, or restaurants?
Look, I don't know that it will necessarily be based on business category. I suspect it might be based on how well those businesses were being run before this, and when I say that, it could be operationally, it could be the strength of their balance sheet, and I think also the other big one is we're aware of the extreme being Queenstown is are there some nuances around your location, and unfortunately, I think Queenstown's in for a really, really rough ride.
Yeah.
And I think even as Queenstown does pick up, it's there's a lot of travellers that help support the hospo industry throughout New Zealand. You've actually got to have, it's freeing up some workforce as well. So all of that, I think, will resync over time, but it's going to be a bit of a tricky one.
The Queenstown one specifically, it's quite. I believe that they've got the most bar licenses per square meter capita or some shit in like all of New Zealand, whatever, because it's just out of control for a small bit. But they were talking about when the potential bubble, if it goes to APAC and gets to Australia, because they've got those direct flights in there, the Australian market for winter directly in its destination is quite big. So they were saying that it's going to be really directly synced with, if they open the bubble to Australia, with the better Queenstown will do specifically. So they're like, let's go to try and at least bring something in. But yeah, you're right. The unfortunately, it's weird. Sometimes the destination of the location that made it so good in a time like this makes it really not good, which is tough for everyone. It's rugged.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be. It is going. I mean, there are going to be some fairly brutal realities that we need to and business owners will need to confront, unfortunately.
So when it's great segue, when it's shitty times, You're a leader, you're a boss, you're an owner. It's not good. You've been forced into a situation that you're not comfortable with, and you really the weight of the world's on your shoulders. Like, what do you think? Like good lead or great leadership needs to look like for this next phase to try and fight you out of it? What would you say to those crew that are in a funny spot that are in this sector right now that are like, shit? How do they prioritize their energy? What does that? Where should their headspace get to in terms of prioritizing the next steps to just survive?
Yeah, good question. Look, I think in terms of the right mindset to lead through this period of time, I think optimism is really, really important. Not for the sake of just being hopeful, but with optimism, with a determination to getting to a better place. I think that's where creativity really comes through. And again, being innovative, being creative will be really important in the next period of time. So I think that's important. I think secondly is the whole learning thing, doing stuff, getting it wrong, looking at what supermarkets are doing, looking at what global exercise companies are doing, wherever you get your inspiration from, but looking outside and also looking within the industry and learning as to what you can do better. I think the other one for me is that this whole thing about confronting reality. When things aren't going well, then just be really honest and upfront with your people and your key stakeholders about it, because I think people would rather know the bad news than have that void, that lack of communication, that uncertainty when they don't know anything. So if things aren't going well, let people know the bad news rather than hold back any communication because you're not sure, because there's that fear of losing. Just straight between the eyes, man. Let people know what's going on when it's not going so well.
Yeah. Lots of tough conversations have been had, and I think there's still a little bit of naivety from the employee side around this next wave of employers are still in for a pretty big struggle. So just trying to dance that tango over the next couple of months is going to be pretty tricky for both employers and employees.
Yeah, and I think there's obviously, I think there's a lot more bad news to come than we've had so far in terms of businesses hanging in their job security and there's a whole lot of bad stuff that's going to happen, and we all know that, right? So we need to front it and deal with people really respectfully.
It's that point of that first wave has come with, we've won the war on winning, the war on maybe the health side first, all things considered, because we're coming down. That's a win, right? But then the next wave is, the longer this first thing is going, the harder it is for the second one, and it's just going to transition from our medical and health concerns to then the business survival and commerce, and then there's going to be the wave on top of it, which then is the community and the headspace and the mental health and the physical safety of certain individuals and communities. And these like it's Dion was talking about it yesterday. Nash, on our the old rope show, he was saying, is this the question to ask is, are we thinking this is the beginning, the middle, or the end, going from 4 to 3?
Yeah.
And if the mindset is this is the end, you've probably the wrong mindset, because it's actually the start of an entire new everything. So just, I guess, perspective on headspace was probably something that I think is going to be quite interesting and critical.
Yeah. I was having a chat. A few mates were having a Zoom beer the other night, and one of them's a
Zooey. You've been having a beer Zooey?
Yeah. And one of the guys in the call, very, very respected business leader in New Zealand, and he made the comment, which I think is quite right, is that well-being, because I think we're looking at the health aspects, and then there's the economic aspects that we've got to deal with. But he quite rightly said the well-being of society is everything. It's health, it's the economy, it's a number of other things that need to be considered as we make our decisions, as the government makes theirs. And it's a really bloody tough time, right? But I've got to say, so far I think things have been handled really well, but the worst in terms of business and food service and hospitality is yet to come.
I would agree. What gets you so when you talk about the reimagining of this new experience that can come, do you get more excited for the potential new products that will come out of this from the food service industry, or more the platforms and the tech? Like, does your brain go to art or science?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. It's for me, it's less around the products, so to speak. It's more around how people innovate with business models, and so much disruption, so much value creation has taken place in the last 5 or 10 years through platforms and new business models. And I think there'll be some really cool stuff that comes out of this in the hospo space and the food service space. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that unfolds.
In each industry, every time there's moments, there's white space, and there's this gap in the middle where there's traditional strategic moves you can make, or there's just straight ninja shit, and it's some flipping crazy ninja move. There's ninja move. Is there any ninja moves you think could exist within the New Zealand hospo and food service space that people haven't been brave enough to try, that have been just there's going for some Hail Mary shit? Like, is there something that you've thought about for ages, like how dope would it be if dot dot dot?
Yeah, I think we've got a whole lot of really innovative, smart business people in the hospo space in NZ. So I think I think when those opportunities exist, they pop up, and if they're really out there, often they do pop up and disappear. But again, I mean, who knows what could happen in terms of firing up society in the first 3 to 6 months after this. And you and I were talking the other day about some really cool and weird communal dining stuff that could take place in some really weird spaces. And you might do that to come out of COVID, but then some of that stuff actually might pick up and be things that happen regularly. So there's just heaps of smart people floating around that'll have a play around with some great ideas. I can't wait to see what they are.
Yeah, the good news, my pick would be, anytime there's a situation like this, is force innovation, and then they do it for the customer. The customer either likes it or it doesn't. If it doesn't, you hear nothing. If you like it, and you're not going to hear any bad shit with that, because they know what everyone's going through and they know the intent's right. So you're not trying to give them a bad Yelp review to be an asshole about it. But for the good ideas that then the consumer sees and loves, the shareability and virality of those ideas is going to spread wildfire on social and digital for other people to see that IP or that thinking to go right. And it will, I think there's going to be a massive, huge wave of, and I was just thinking about then, of this like open source innovation to help each other. I really feel that will happen because they will see it, it will be working, it will get shared. Customers will be like, yeah, like, oh shit, who was talking about the other day, talking about when they're overseas in Europe or some shit, it's $2 to get a takeaway coffee, but $4 to sit down. Was that you? Did we talk about that?
No, it wasn't. No.
And it was that thing of, changing the expectation of time and money. And there's going to be these different models, these different things. And probably maybe to your point before, Grant, of around, if you did it to that 45 minutes of Prego or whatever, and you knew that that's what the gig was, you'd be like, sweet, at least I get to go. It's better than flipping 6 weeks looking at the tiger picture in the back, Is that a tiger? What is that? Is that a cheetah? What is it?
It's a leopard.
It's a leopard. See, I don't know. Failed high school, mate. What do you expect? Just like just a tech guy. Yeah, you're right. Actually, the document, that's going to be cool to see, because I always like to I consume kind of everything, but I take little strands and I can see how they pick into different little industries. I'm like, oh, you could get there. Oh, I wonder what that looks like to get there. But also just, I feel as well, there's this wait, because there's a playbook and the government says, okay, this is what the rules are, go, and then everyone's gonna be like, okay, so can we do this or can't we, or should we do that or shouldn't we, or what if we, and there's just gonna be like this forced now what, and it's in a cool way, it's forcing big businesses to feel and run and act and execute like startups. And I think that headspace shift of making traditional slow people move fast, after they've done it once already, they're then going to go, well, why can't we dot dot dot, well, why not dot dot dot, well, why couldn't we dot dot dot. And that's going to, weirdly enough, I think that creates better business, faster outcomes, better thinking, more innovative thing, more risk taking, more like now's the time
Yeah.
just to, you know what I mean?
Totally, man. And I think the danger, and in some situations, it won't make sense for hospo businesses, food service businesses, to set up again in level three. But if you can, if you can get your team together and start playing around with stuff and doing stuff and serving customers, what you do in level three will really help to determine how well things work out in level two. And to me, it's sure sell some product, but just start working out different ideas. Just fire the grills back up, make a few customers happy, and just start doing something in three, and you'll have a much better run in level two. Certainly, that's my thinking at any rate.
Even the idea around co-creating it with your community,
Yep.
right? Like, let's say it's your favorite local little cafe or restaurant or some shit, and old mate Maurice that's behind the grill, we go on Facebook Live and the community jumps in. All right, what do we want to have? What do we the people? We the people, but do it in real time. Like, I think there's going to be a huge,
Yeah.
really interesting kind of like. My brain always thinks about the conversion of a community into customer through content, but curated with good creativity. Lots of C's in there. But anyway, and then I'm thinking, okay, if that's what you've got, and you've got stories, and you've got these relationships, and it becomes a thing, and you co-create what you want, when you want it, how you want it with them, the buy-in is going to be such a flippin' absolute no-brainer that
Totally,
you
man.
could almost even
Yep.
get to spots when you're like, okay, cool. Well, how do we put a call to action at the end of this live stream that goes to, buy a pre-discount voucher to get some cash flow into while we do it, and when we do the next thing, then we, like, how do you not gamify, but my belief that it's always been, and I've said it for years now, and now it's starting to happen. It's like, no shit, is every brand is its own media company, and it's controlling everything from end to end, including distribution. And when everyone can create the same shit, the point of difference is the brand, it's the storytelling, it's the relationships, it's the customer experience, it's the depth of those things. And now is the perfect time where you think about, cool. It was like the question I always ask to when I talk to brands, where it was like, okay, if you were a TV network, what would I be watching? Like, if you're the cafe down on the spot there, what am I watching? Okay, cool. I'm watching you and the Young Buck stuff, doing all this stuff, making it from end to end, every different product, talking through it, talking through the pricing. How could we do this a bit differently? I think if I was them, proactively co-create products and services with your customers, the buy-in to it would be,
Huge.
mate, if Prego right now did a live stream with the chef, wireless lapelled up with a flipping little gimbal thing doing some shit, and then you could go and buy one there for 20% discount, but you pay now. Shit, yes, you're gonna do it.
Yeah,
Like, you could
totally.
monetize level 3 before you even pop out, and then you could pre-book all of those pre-sold things into time, stack the times around, and you can already go from the second you go from 3 to 2. That day comes, you're already pre-booked to ready to rumble. You know what I mean? Like, you can hack this shit. I mean, I don't know, I don't know the space that much. I'm just thinking, like, how would I hack it? And I think, just things like that are pretty interesting to me, that I'm wondering, I hope people embrace to try and just flip and lateral past this shit and just go ninja on it,
Totally. I mean, it's a great call, Robert. Have some fun, get people involved, get that engagement, and again, using digital, right? Not just on the spot, not just in store. So I think there are so many cool things that could be done, and now's the time to try and play with that and work it out.
Shit, yeah. Charlotte Grimwood, journalism student, says, do you think takeaway stores would be able to operate safely during level 4 lockdown? No, because you got to be at home.
Yeah, Look, it's I think the direction they're moving in for level 3 makes sense. I think part of level 4 is just working out what's going on. So I think when you're playing around with people being in kitchens and service staff and click and collect and that sort of stuff, it's got a bit of risk in that. So I think where we're at right now makes sense, and because we've learned over the last 3 weeks, and fingers crossed next Thursday we get to start doing some cool stuff with hospo and with food service, and we fire it back up again.
What's your hope for how this shit rolls out? What's some sprinkle dust? Where do you're like, Dope. This is what it can be. What do you see it as?
Yeah, I think there's two big themes for me. One is that we fire hospo up, we fire food service up as quickly as we can. And, we're a bloody innovative bunch here in NZ. If it's stuff we're exporting overseas, we're very innovative. We produce great products. So I think, how quickly can we be a part of firing it up? Not just waiting for it to happen, but really drive creatively and traditionally great execution. I think the second one for me, which is a whole lot harder, is is that big question mark over tourism, because it's just such a big part of the economy, and hospo plays such a big part in tourism. And so, I've listened to some of your other interviews, and I think there's some really cool ideas being floated around in terms of freeing up, tourism within New Zealand and bringing some people back in pretty quickly. But that's a hope. I'm not qualified to comment on how that could play out. But
neither, mate. But I still say
it's just so critical. Oh man, it's just so critical, right? For every part of NZ.
Yeah, it's very clear that Kiwis are going to want to back themselves and each other way, way, way more than ever before, and not flinch when certain things are going to be a bit more expensive because they're local, but they know what it actually means for others, because they're part of that ecosystem too. And the collective mindset for that hyper local resiliency, which I've been kind of talking about a little bit of, how do you really support that person right to your right and left of you, instead of potentially others that are away and not right there in your community with your people, with the livelihoods of everyone around you. Because a few parts are going to drop off, and then it's like, cool, well, what skill sets do these humans have? Where can they get redeployed? Where does the rest of our nation need it? And I just really hope that the collaborative thinking exists at the top at a high enough level that can just be more macro with things to plug and play different pieces. Like one of the great ones I heard this last week was Andrew Slater, the CEO of Home Care Medical, and he was just like, we went from 400 to 1,150 staff in 2 weeks or some shit. And I took 700 staff that were at like House of Tourism or House of Travel that were doing the phones, because they were good with people, they had empathy, and they could understand what the customer actually wanted. And we used them into helping Youthline and all these other different bits and pieces, right? How good is that thinking? Like, that's like incredible. So I just really hope that people don't stay siloed in their bubbles of trying to solve everything themselves when everyone has their own problem right now. And if we can just elevate up the thinking in the chat to have more, kind of like horizontal collaboration, like Cameron George, was CEO of Warriors, was talking about. He's like, he needs to have that, he wants to have that. And I think if we do that more openly and transparently with a bit more vulnerability and authenticity, it will speed up everyone's win, I feel, which gets me hopeful if we get down that path.
Well, totally agree. And I actually think there's been some really good signs to date. So, I mean, clearly there's the bit around running the country and involving key stakeholders in these decisions. And from what I gather, there's been really good involvement from business in some of the key decisions that have been made. And there's still a bit to go there, right? But secondly, then you look at industry bodies and how they've been working really well together. So, there's some really good collaborative and lateral stuff going on in that space, and then really good people running really good businesses. And it was great to listen to Tim from Juicy yesterday. I mean, you can just tell how he engages with his staff, right? And so and it starts at the coalface. So if you can bring those thoughts and ideas through into a business, then into an industry, and back up into government, again, there'll be a lot of really cool magic that takes place. And I sense that has been happening, and I think a lot more of it will, and it will need to, right? Because it's going to get a whole lot more painful.
Mega, man. Dude, I appreciate your time, man. I know you're a free man at the moment, but you're definitely busy. You've got your fingers in many pies, and you're looking at this ecosystem, and clearly you've got a skill set that's seen big shit at the world, but how it could potentially help and redesign it for Kiwis and each other, which is pretty awesome, man. Any last final words? I mean, you came really prepared. I mean, the other four that have come with the notes, there have been some weapons, but usually the others actually had their PR crews or their EAs or whatever make sure that things are tight. So you've done really well, Grant. I think you've done great.
Thank you, Robett. My closing words are let's get out and enjoy our favourite restaurants, man, when they're up and running, or cafes or bars. Let's get back into it as soon as we can.
I'll see you at Prago for a quick 45-minute
Yeah,
dine and dash.
D45.
Yeah,
D45. Let's brand
D45.
it.
There you go. And you can brand that shit, and we'll just get a straw each and a bottle of Pinot. See you at the bottom.
I'll be there, man. I'll be there.
Shot, brother. Love your work, mate.
All right. Cheers,
CG.
Robett.
Later, bro.
Catch you.
Some bastard. Mate, what a flipping. That's a goodie. Even if you're listening, say thank you, Grant. Great chats. It's quite interesting as well, the mindset of those that have really gone global. I mean, you look at you do digging into Grant, and you know he's going from 1.4 billion to 2.8. He's dealing in billions, not millions, and the end-to-end process of how things get created here, taken offshore, absolutely everything, customer experience, the business models, there's all these different levers that you can pull, and it's become very clear, regardless what vertical you are in, regardless what industry you're in, regardless what type of business you're in at all, there's so many different other these ninja lateral moves which can be which you can make and do. And I think there was gold in there, some cool ideas about potentially what you could do if you're a local business and stuff as well. So it was going, before we finish, I am going to say a comment that just came through from Jonathan Cameron. Listening to this and looking out the window, I've counted so many different food delivery trucks delivering down a street that I have never heard before. It's great, all of these new omni channels opening up for all, big or small, raw milk, fresh milk, meat, fruit, produce, and restaurant quality products. Totally agree, Jonathan. Support the local. I think there's a thing coming out. It's going to be hashtag love your local, which I think is going to be something pretty big, which is coming out soon. I had a few text messages going back and forth today about it. Might be dropping tomorrow. Hopefully we do. And the other one we're working on is how to get people, back in business. So I'm really learning a lot. This has been awesome. It's right about 5 o'clock, and we're about to go into the next show, which will be a public call-in show. So you can ring in. How's your week been? What's been rad? What's been shit? What's been awesome? Grab a virtual beer. Join me on the next one, and I'll be seeing you all soon, team. Adios. Doses. Whiskey.